Arjuna is one of the protagonists of the ancient Indian epic Mahabharata and plays a key role in the Bhagavad Gita alongside Krishna. He is also considered by many the best archer of his time. He was the third of the Pandava brothers and was married to Draupadi, Ulupi, Chitrangada and Subhadra at different occasions. His children included Srutakarma, Iravan, Babruvahana, and Abhimanyu. Etymology and other names. The name Arjuna has among its meanings white, clear, and silver. It is a descendant of the same Proto-Indo-European root as Latin argentum, silver. Arjuna in Sanskrit has also traditionally been interpreted as Na-Arjayate Arjuna, which translates to the one who is not unvictorious. An alternate etymology may be traced to Pi root *reg, which means ruler or one who guides. Cognates of Arjuna, Latin, regions meaning ruler, Hindi, Raj meaning king, and English, regal. The Mahabharata refers to Arjuna by 12 different names. In the story, these names are given when Prince Uttara of Matsya asks Arjuna to prove his identity. The first 10 names are spoken by Arjuna himself, while the name Kapidwaja is also used to refer to his chariot, the Nandighosha. The names and the meanings are as follow: Arjuna, shining or famous like silver. Falguna, one born under the star named Uttara Falguni. Jishnu's triumphant. Kirtan, one who wears the celestial diadem, Kiriti, presented by Indra. Shwetavaharana, one with white horses mounted to his chariot. Bibahatsu, one who always fights wars in a fair manner. Vijaya, always wins on war. Partha, son of Pritha, another name for Kunti. Savyasachan, ambidextrous. Dhananjaya, one who brings prosperity and wealth in the land where he goes to. Gudakesha, someone who have control over sleeps. Kapidwaja, having flag of Karpi in his chariot. Parantapa, one who concentrates the most, destroyer of enemies from his concentration. Gandhavardhanvan, one who possessed the mighty bow named Gandhiva, which was created by Lord Brahma. Gandhavardhara, Gandhiva holder. Madhya Pandava, the third of Pandavas, younger to Yudhishthira and Bhima and elder to Nakula and Sahadeva. Birth and youth. Arjuna was born into the royal family of Hastinapura. He was acknowledged as a son of Pandu by his first wife Kunti, though he was fathered by the grace of the god Indra, rather than by Pandu, who was cursed that he would die if he tried to father children. Arjuna was the third son, after Yudhishthira and Bhima. Younger to him were the twin sons born of Pandu's second wife Madri, Nakula and Sahadeva. After the death of Pandu, the Pandavas and the mother lived in Hastinapura, where they were brought up together with the cousins, the Kaurava brothers. Along with his brothers, Arjuna was trained in religion, science, administration and military arts by Bhishma. One day, when the princes were playing the game, they lost the ball in a well. When the rest of the children gave up the ball as being lost, Arjuna stayed behind trying to get it. A stranger came by and extracted the ball for him by making a chain of sarkanda. When an astonished Arjuna related the story to Bhishma, Bhishma realized that the stranger was none other than Drona. Bhishma asked Drona to become the Kuru prince's teacher. Seeking refuge from Panchala, Drona agreed. Tutelage under Drona. Under Drona's tutelage, the Kauravas and the Pandavas, along with the princes of Hastinapura's allies and vassals, learned weaponry. Arjuna became Drona's favorite and most accomplished pupil. Specifically, he became a master in using the bow and the arrow. In a famous incident, Drona deemed that out of all his students, even his own son Ashwathama, none but Arjuna had the steadfast focus to shoot the eye of a bird on a tree. He was proven right. In 2 other incidents, the reader sees how Arjuna's destiny is shaped. Arjuna was the only one with the skill and fortitude to save his teacher from an attack from a crocodile. In reality, the attack was a ruse Drona used to test his students. In another story, Arjuna, noticing Bhima eating in the dark, trained himself to shoot accurately without visualizing his target. Impressed by Arjuna, Drona promised his pupil that he would make Arjuna the greatest archer that ever lived or ever would live. Drona adhered to this vow so strongly that when he discovered a Kirat Prince Ekalavya of potential superior archery skill, Drona demands him into cutting off the thumb of his hand, so that he kept his promise to Arjuna. As part of his Guru Dakshina, Arjuna and his brothers attacked Panchal and captured King Draupadi, with Arjuna making the arrest himself. Drona requested this in order to settle an old grudge he had with Draupadi. Secretly, Draupadi was greatly impressed by Arjuna and wished for him to marry his daughter, Draupadi. At the end of the training, the Kuru princes displayed their talents to their elders in an arena. There Arjuna steals the show, using divine weapons to great effect. However, before he can be crowned as the victor of the tournament, he is challenged by Karna. Karna matched Arjuna's feats, perhaps overpowered him, but due to his low birth, Karna is not allowed to compete and gets insulted by Bhima, Arjuna and the others for being a Sutaputra. This incident marks the beginning of a feud between Karna and Arjuna that lasts until the end of the story. As the Pandavas and Kauravas grew older, a crown prince had to be named. Yudhishthira won the nomination over Duryodhana. Angered, Duryodhana plotted with his uncle Shakuni, who masterminded a plan to kill the Pandavas. The Kauravas have a house of wax built. They desire to send the Pandavas vacationing to the wax house, under some pretense, before setting the house on fire. Alerted of the scheme by Vidura, the Pandavas evaded the trap. Arjuna and Bhima wanted to declare war, but Yudhishthira cooled them down. Under his orders, Arjuna, Kunti, and the Pandavas faked their deaths and went into hiding. Marriage to Draupadi. Still in hiding, the Pandavas disguised themselves as Brahmins and attend the Swayamvara of Panchala Princess Draupadi. Out of all of the great kings and other Kaurava princes, only Karna and Arjuna are able to do the established challenge. The test is to lift string and fire pinakan to pierce the eye of a golden fish whilst only looking at its reflection. Draupadi had designed this test with Arjuna in mind. At first Karna is able to lift and string the bow, but when he is aiming to fire the shot, Draupadi rejects Karna for his low birth. Afterwards, the disguised Arjuna accomplished the stringing and shooting of the bow. In some versions of the story, Arjuna is the only prince to have interacted with Draupadi before. When attacking Draupadi, Draupadi, trained in martial arts due to Panchal's attitudes towards gender neutrality, fights with Arjuna. But Arjuna after some while stops and evades Draupadi, saying that he cannot fight a woman. In some versions of the Swayamvara, Arjuna is forbidden by Kunti to attend the Swayamvara. Kunti's reasoning is that only Yudhishthira and Duryodhana would be acceptable candidates for Draupadi's hand. Anyone else, not set to inherit the throne, would be an insult to Panchal. She allows Bhima to attend because he is Yudhishthira's heir and could win Draupadi for his brother without controversy. When Arjuna disobeys her anyways, as he is firing the arrow, he swears to God that if wins Draupadi's hand, he would never disobey his mother's commands. When the brothers returned with Draupadi, Arjuna joked to his mother that they had brought arms. Dismissively and without looking because she was preoccupied, Kunti asks him to share it with his brothers. Holding his mother's orders as a divine command, he requested his elder brother to accept Draupadi. Draupadi had to marry all 5 of the Pandavas. Her 5 sons, one from each of the Pandava brothers, are known as the Upper Pandavas. Srutakarma is the son of Arjuna. The brothers follow Vyasa's advice on a sharing arrangement with regard to Draupadi. Each brother would have exclusive rights over her for a year, after which the mantle will shift to the next brother. Moreover, any brother intruding on the privacy of the couple would have to go on a 12-year Tirthayatra. At this point in the Mahabharata, the Pandavas revealed that they were alive, with both Duryodhana and Yudhishthira being crown princes. Tensions are high. Under Bhishma's advice, the kingdom is split, with the Kauravas getting Hastinapur and the Pandavas getting Pandavaprastha. Pandavaprastha, however, was an extremely underdeveloped land and had infertile soil, requiring extensive tilling, so the Pandavas set to work rebuilding the land. Their cousins Krishna and Balarama gave them aid. Burning of Pandavavana. In some versions of the story, this was the first time Arjuna meets Krishna. In any case, Pandavaprastha was where Arjuna and Krishna's friendship is truly forged. Once when roaming in the Pandavavana, Arjuna and Krishna met the god of fire, Agni. Agni was in great hunger and needed to burn down the entire Pandavavana to quench his hunger. But Takshaka, the serpent king, lived in the same forest and was a friend of Indra's, so the latter brought down heavy rains to thwart Agni's plans to burn the woods. Agni requested Krishna and Arjuna to help him realize his goal. The three of them then invoked Varuna, the god of the oceans, who blessed Arjuna with the Gandhiva, the Agni moon bow created by Brahma. In this way, Arjuna came into possession of his famous bow. Agni also gave Arjuna an incandescent chariot with 4 horses yoked, and bearing a flag that would one day be occupied by Hanuman. Arjuna also obtained his famous conch. With Krishna using the Sudarshana chakra, Arjuna and Krishna waged a successful battle against Indra and helped Agni burn down the entire Pandava-vana, including all its demons and evil spirits. Indra's anger was meted by his pride in his son. Saving Mayusura in the demolition of Pandava, Krishna and Arjuna had saved one demon, Mayusura. Owing Arjuna a boon, Mayusura told that he would build a palace for Yudhishthira. As Mayusura was a great architect of the Asuras, he soon constructed the Maya Assembly Hall, a gigantic palace for the Pandavas, filled with ancient books, artifacts, and jewels. This hall was famous for visual illusions. Thus, Pandavaprastha was renamed Indraprastha. Arjuna's Tirthayatra and Indraprastha. During an incident when Takshaka stole Brahman's cows, Arjuna was forced to violate Yudhishthira and Draupadi's privacy while they were playing the game of dice, as he had left the Gandhiva in the room. Despite the understanding of all and being forgiven by both Yudhishthira and Draupadi, Arjuna accepted the punishment agreed with Narada and set off on a 12-year Tirthayatra. Meeting Ulupi, Arjuna started his pilgrimage by visiting the source of the river Ganga. It was here that he met the Naga princess, Ulupi. She was mesmerized by Arjuna and forcefully took him to Nagalok and gave him a choice. If he married her, she would let him go, otherwise, she would not. He married her, and they had a son called Iravan. Chitrangada and Manipura. Arjuna visited other tirthas in India, including Kalinga and the ashrams of the Saptarishis, Agastya, Vasishtha and Bhrigu. Finally he reached the palaces of Manipur. Here he met King Chitrangada's daughter, Chitrangada. Arjuna fell in love with her and requested the king for her marriage. Upon discovering Arjuna's true identity, the king readily agreed. Since Chitrangada was his oldest child and Manipur practiced equal primogeniture, which Hastinapur did not practice, the king sought a promise from Arjuna that Chitrangada and any of her and Arjuna's children would remain in Manipur as Chitrangada's heirs. Arjuna thought for some while and agreed. They both had a son, who survived the Mahabharata war and ruled the small kingdom peacefully. Reaching Dwarka and Subhadra, Arjuna moved to other tirthas, including the southern regions in Kerala. Finally he reached Dwarka, the place where his cousin Krishna resided. Arjuna had, in his childhood, heard about Krishna's sister, Subhadra. Krishna, wishing to further tie the families, knew of Arjuna's visit and devised a plan to arrange the meet. Accordingly, Arjuna disguised himself as a yati and stayed at Krishna's palace. Arjuna fell in love with Subhadra and desired to marry her, because Balarama had already promised Subhadra to his favorite disciple, Duryodhana. Krishna advised Arjuna to kidnap Subhadra. Balarama became furious upon learning of the abduction but is pacified by Krishna after he showed that the wedding ring was in Sudadra's hand, which showed her consent. The couple stayed in Dwaraka for a year, and then another year in Pushkar. However, Draupadi had made it clear that no other Pandava wife would be allowed to stay in her city, so Arjuna, as per Krishna's advice, tricked Draupadi into meeting Subhadra as a milkmaid. Draupadi realized she had been tricked, but she forgave Subhadra and let her stay in Indraprastha, allowing her to give company to Arjuna in the 4 years when he was not with Draupadi. In due course, Arjuna and Subhadra gave birth to a son, Abhimanyu. Conquest for Rajasulya. Arjuna was sent north by Yudhishthira to subjugate kingdoms for the Rajasulya Yagya, so that he could be crowned emperor of Indraprastha. The Mahabharata mentions several kingdoms to the east of Indraprastha which were conquered by Arjuna. Most notably, he defeats Bhagadatta of Pragyotisha, who repelled Arjuna for 8 days straight, but impressed with Arjuna's skill agreed to pay tribute. Bhagadatta was also a great friend of Pandu. Exile. After Yudhishthira succumbed to Shakuna's challenge in the game of dice, the Pandavas were forced to be in exile for 13 years, which included 1 year in anonymity. Penance for Pasupatistra. After the battle at Pandava, Indra had promised Arjuna to give him all his weapons as a boon for matching him in battle, with the requirement that Shiva is pleased with him. Sensing an impending war with the Kauravas, sage Vyasa advised Arjuna that he obtain the Pasupatistra from Lord Shiva. Following the advice of sage Vyasa to go on a meditation or tapasya to attain this divine weapon, Arjuna left his brothers for a penance. Arjuna travelled for a while before reaching the mountain Indrakiladri, Vijayawada. Here he sat in meditation in the name of Lord Shiva. Shiva appeared soon enough in the guise of a hunter who challenged Arjuna to a fight. While being thoroughly dominated by Shiva, Arjuna became confused as to how an ordinary hunter could beat a warrior like himself. He prays to Shiva for strength, and then sees the offerings he made to Shiva around the hunter's neck. Shiva was very pleased with the bravery and prowess of the prince. Consequently, Shiva transformed himself to show his real avatar and blessed Arjuna with the Pasupatistra. Shiva lectures Arjuna on the abilities of the weapon, as well as the judgment he must use while wielding it. After Shiva left, the Lokapalas appeared before Arjuna, and then Kubra, Jama, and Varuna also blessed each of the potent weapons to Arjuna. Indra then invited his son to his palace in heaven. Arjuna was amazed at the splendor of his father's palace at Amaravati. Dances like Urvashi, Tilottama, Ramba and Menaka entertained him. There was a huge banquet serving different varieties of heavenly dishes. Arjuna learned song and dance from the Gandharva, Chitrangada, and Indra himself taught him all the divine weapons and also gave him his Vajra. Urvashi's curse. Indra noted the passionate glances exchanged between Arjuna and Urvashi during his stay. However, Arjuna refused her advances, alleging that he had heard of her relationship with his ancestor Pururava, and hence she had the status of a mother, equal in respect to Kunti. Urvashi, annoyed at this, cursed him that he would become a eunuch who would have to live among women, singing and dancing. On Indra's request, and regretting her anger, Urvashi reduced her curse to a period of 1 year of Arjuna's choice. In some versions of the story, Urvashi curses Arjuna with womanhood, but always reduces the curse to a year's length. Navartikavachis and Hiranyapura. Arjuna gets the opportunity to test his skill when Indra asked him to defeat his enemy as the price of his training. Arjuna was taken to the palace of the Navartikavachis, a tribe of Rakshasas who had a magnificent palace under the oceans. Arjuna used the Mohini Astra and the Madhava Astra to demolish these asuras. He was also taken to Hiranyapura, a palace in the sky created by a witch Puloma and his asura tribe of the Kalakanchas. Here Arjuna uses the Rudra Astra and annihilates the demons. Meeting Hanuman. Continuing his quest, Arjuna visits the site of Rama Setu in Dhanushkodi. There, he openly questions why, if Rama had been such a great archer, he hadn't simply built the bridge out of arrows. Angered at Arjuna's turn and his apparent questioning of Rama's prowess, Hanuman confronts Arjuna in the form of an ordinary monkey and challenges him to prove his superiority by building a bridge of arrows that could bear his weight. Tensions escalate until Arjuna pledges to defeat Hanuman or kill himself, going so far as to frivolously use divine weapons to build bridge after bridge, while Hanuman uses his God-given strength to destroy them all. Eventually, Krishna intervenes, chiding Arjuna for his excessive pride and Hanuman for allowing his love of Rama to overcome his pacifism. Regaining his composure, Hanuman pledges to reside in Arjuna's battle standard during the Kurukshetra war. Eunuch at Virata's kingdom along with his brothers, Arjuna spent his last year of exile in the kingdom of Matsya. This is the place where Urvashi's curse is implemented and Arjuna becomes a eunuch called Brihanala. At the palace, he teaches song and dance qualities he had learned from Chitrasena to the king Virata's daughter Uttara. Later, Arjuna arranges for Uttara to become his daughter-in-law by marrying his son Abhimanyu to her. At the same time, he prevents Subhadra from marrying Abhimanyu to Balarama's daughter Vatsala, as the curious find marriages between cousins taboo. But Arjuna and Subhadra are cousins too, since Kunti and Vasudeva are brother and sister. Hearing about the death of Kichaka, Duryodhana surmises that the Pandavas were hiding in Matsya. A host of Kaurava warriors attack Virata, presumably to steal the cattle, but in reality, desiring to pierce the Pandavas' veil of anonymity. Full of bravado, Virata's son Uta attempts to take on the army by himself while the rest of the Matsya army has been lured away to fight Sushama and the Trigatas. Per Draupadi's suggestion, Uta takes Brihanala with him as his charioteer. When he sees the Kaurava army, Uta loses his nerve and attempts to flee. There Arjuna reveals his identity and those of his brothers. Switching places with Uta, Arjuna takes up the Gandhiva and Devadatta. Eager to defend the land that had given him refuge, Arjuna engaged the legion of Kaurava warriors, leading Matsya to victory and giving all credit for the victory to Uta in his place. Virat War is considered as an interpolation by many scholars. Many versions of Mahabharata do not mention it. In some versions Arjuna was defeated by Bhishma, Drona and Karna. Finally Arjuna chased Duryodhana and defeated him. According to many scholars, Virat War is an interpolated medicine to recover the cheetah and weak image of Arjuna.